Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage Off Stage. I'm your host, George Sapio, and this is episode number 175, March of 2024. Our guest this month is Dionne Lea. Dionne is a Broadway World Award nominated actor, singer, producer. She does improv, variety shows, theater, commercials, television, voiceover, and film. I don't think there's anything she cannot do. She is currently bringing her show, The Way It Is Now, in which she tells stories and performs musical numbers around the United States to enthusiastic audiences. The Way It Is Now, solo performer. It's a musical, you tell stories, and the show absolutely sounds fascinating. You've been doing this for a little while now, and I'd like to know where the show came from, how it got started, what made you do this?
Well, this show was was actually developed out because of the pandemic, all the things that happened during the pandemic. And as an artist, and I think I saw a lot of artists, but as an artist, I was like, well, I gotta come out of the pandemic with a product.
Hmm.
I've been in this house doing Zoom shows, Zoom readings, Zoom plays. I mean, there's all these skills for Zoom. And it's like, I got to figure out a way to do a show and talk about all of these different things. And
Mm-hmm.
also about all the things I was learning during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, More about Black Lives Matter, more really, really feeling like um, the oppression of being a Black person in this country, a Black woman in this country,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
missing my mother who passed right before the pandemic, but grateful that she did in a strange way. All these things I wanted to address, but nobody wants to come out of being in a house for years and like watch a Debbie Downer show. So my musical director and I sat and we were like, we have to figure out how to tell these very difficult stories and with a lens of positivity and that brings joy and also relatability
Right.
and help people through it. So how do we do that? Oh, let's try and do it with only up tempo music. So
Okay, sure, yeah.
so I talk about some really difficult things. I talk about cancellation culture with an
Mm.
upbeat song. You're being canceled, but there's a lot to think about, like why are people being canceled? Like, why are we not forgiving people? How do we learn to walk around these topics without offending people? Because I'm going to be 52 this weekend. I'm so excited that I'm going to be 52. Thank God.
Happy birthday.
Um, Thank you very much. But my kids are not in the house, so I don't have that daily education
Hmm.
of what I can say, what I can't say, how to say it. Oh, I don't know. I didn't know I was saying something offensive. I had no idea. We talk about that in my show. It's a show that brings people together in all the complexities of life. I would say for those folks who are 40 and above.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a good time.
How good are your kids at keeping you current?
My kids are actually really good at keeping me current. My youngest doesn't always say it right.
How old's your youngest?
She'll be 20 soon.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but she's just learning. Like, well, I'm not going to respond to that if you talk to me like that. My older daughter, who's going to be 23, is better at saying, "Well, this is the reason." She studies psychology. This is the reason why you can't say that because it may trigger someone in this way because of
Hmm.
A, B, C, and D. I grew up in a world where like I'm not responsible for your triggers. And I don't know, I don't want people to hang up from listening to that, but like,
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for your triggers. I can't possibly know what's going to trigger every single human being that I talk to, but I know that there are things I can do better. And that's what my kids try and teach me.
I grew up the same
Yeah,
way. You know,
right.
I had the privilege of saying anything I wanted to anybody I wanted, and there was never, ever any blowback on whether what I
Hmm.
said was correct, polite, considerate, compassionate. I've come to appreciate the fact that we are now living in a trigger aware society, especially when it comes to things in the arts. At the very least, I can label work. There's a sound of gunfire. There's an issue being discussed, a parent's passing away, a family tragedy, that sort of thing. People can have, they won't be caught unawares and make what should be a pleasant experience unpleasant for them. The
Yeah, in
behavior of
some
letting other
ways,
people know that there might be something there that
mm,
could possibly offend them.
correct, because there is some language. There is some language that we definitely have to look at. That particular song that I talk about that is called Tightrope. It's Janelle Monáe's song.
Hmm.
Um, and it's an interesting lens to listen to that song because we listened to it as a pop tune on the radio,
Right.
a dance song, and now we're listening to it with a different lens of, oh, I'm walking on this tightrope.
Some people talk about you like they know all about you. When you get down, they doubt you. And when you dip in on the seat, and they just talk about it. Cause they can't dip on the seat, and they just talk about it. Talk about it. When you get elevated, they love it or they hate it. You dance upon them haters. We getting funky on the seat, and while they jumping around you, they trying to take all your dreams, but you can't allow it. Cause baby, whether you're high or low, whether you're high or low, you've got to tip on the tightrope. Hey, tip on the tightrope. Baby, baby, whether you're high or low.
Because we're always walking on the tightrope of how do we speak to people? How do we
Yeah.
present ourselves? How do we say this and stay true to ourselves,
Hmm.
but also be respectful of the other person?
It is a
You know,
tightrope, and it's one
it
that
is a tightrope. It's a
we
tightrope.
should, yeah. I mean, we should get used to
Tightrope.
walking it because it's the way it opens up
But
communications.
oh yeah, and it keeps life interesting. I have a friend who said, she said, I love the challenges of life. And I had never heard anyone say that. They love the challenges of life. And that changed my whole perspective
Hmm.
about how I got up every single day and how I looked at the challenges of what's going on in the world. Because it's active. You know,
Yeah.
you if you're active, that's the positivity of it all of this show. If you're active, you're trying to find that little bit of something that you can make better,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes.
in communicating with people, in caring for people, in compassion and what's going on in the world and the wars. And so that's what my show is about. How do we get up and face all these challenges with joy and respect and positivity and like really accept these challenges because they're not going away. They're not
No,
going to go away.
and I don't think
So we
you'll ever
have
run
to,
out of material to react to.
no,
Yeah.
no.
What else do you cover in the show? Like personal
I
stories
cover,
like
I,
this.
yeah, I cover I'm an empty nester. I talk about that. That's the only, it's a medley of Broadway songs. The only song that I actually sing, and I actually use some Broadway medleys. So my youngest Ruby went to college last year, and I was wrecked. I was wrecked, I have to say. I have loved every second of being their mother and having them home and all the things. Getting up in the morning and preparing. Every morning I made them tea. Um, I put out their vitamins every morning. I made them breakfast. I took them to the bus stop every day until their senior year because their school wouldn't allow you to drive. So I was really invested in my mothering. I have struggled.
I'll
I've
bet.
struggled.
I'll bet. Well, you've got a show now to fill your time, correct?
Yeah. So the show has helped that. Yeah, it's helped me feel that like emptiness. And I also have a group of girlfriends who help me feel it. Like, oh, I forgot that I had friends. I have forgot that I had a life outside of being my
Yeah.
husband's wife and my kid's mother and my girlfriends have been waiting for me to get back out in these streets. And that's what we have done.
Without alienating the love of your kids, how does it feel to be out on your own?
It's good. It is good. I've gone to Mexico with girlfriends, Hawaii with girlfriends, numerous girls' nights that we can't really talk about because I could be arrested.
No,
uh,
yeah, we don't want to go there.
spa trips, it's
Hmm.
been dates. I have date nights with my husband. We have really good time. We've gotten back to going out and having dinner out and being a little more frivolous, because
That's
we don't have to buy
nice.
so many groceries. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Spend all the grocery money on avocado toast at brunch.
Correct.
I have a friend who's in the same situation as you, empty nester right now, and she's been dealing with it for a little bit over a year. Then she would say to me, "I have no idea what to do with my time. I have just so much time." And as time moves on, she's gotten busier and busier. And now she's like, "Oh my God, the kids are coming home. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have any time to see them, but I love them."
Yeah. And they come home and they look in the refrigerator like during the holidays. They're like, "Where's the food?" I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
oh
I
yeah.
didn't have time to go to the store, but you can because you can drive."
Well, that's the first thing they do. They
Yeah.
walk in, they drop off the laundry, and they go hit the fridge. Hi, Mom, I'm home
Yeah.
again. Oh my goodness. How long have you been doing the show? Said you started it when the pandemic hit and you were creating
Hmm.
this and working on it. How long did it take you to conceive this show to the first stage you hit?
About 6 months.
Okay.
I don't rush any show I've done. I write really. The stories are very well written. My shows are like plays. I work very intensely with my musical
Hmm.
director to be sure that we're actually communicating what we think we're communicating. We retune all of the songs that we call retuning them so that they do actually fit into the story. It takes me a little time.
Not being a musical theater artist, I do not sing. I think it's against the law for me to raise my voice and sing in public. Uh, Constructing a musical show or a musical piece like this, 6 months to me is a time where I'm thinking, doesn't that seem short or is that long? I have no idea what it takes to put something
it
like that together, to gather songs, to rehearse, to nail everything down to precision timing.
for one person, I believe that it's enough time.
Okay.
It's the show that I started with is not the show that I have now. The first time I did it at
Hmm.
the El Portal Theater here in it's in North Hollywood. It's very different from how it started. I got my master's at NYU. I grew up doing theater, and I grew up in kind of this with this kind of workshop mindset that comes from my high school, college, NYU, and also being near, the public theater and
Right.
learning about their how things are workshopped. So the 6 months it's just like development and writing and rewriting, and it's on its feet and it's active, and it's just me,
Yeah.
So I have all the time in the world because my kids are gone to really do good work and focus on me. Yeah, I'm sure Hamilton was a really big
Oof.
process. I
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
That's probably
my
more than
husband.
6 months, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband did Jelly's The Last Jam, right? That
Hmm.
was the whole thing. But for me, 6 months was enough time. And also, I believe in having a date. So you book a date and then you work hard to get to that
Yeah.
date. Otherwise, as an artist, you're just like, oh, I'll get there, I'll get there. Your fear will start taking over and you'll never accomplish anything.
You've got to have a
Um,
deadline.
you got to have a deadline.
Yeah.
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 They're
Yeah.
important. They're terrifying, but they're important. So, how did you know way back when that theater was what you wanted to do?
I
Perform.
saw a place. Yeah. I went when I was in middle school. I was watching Fame like everybody else.
Yeah.
And I would dream about what they were doing on that television screen. And then lo and behold, Milwaukee, where I'm from,
Hmm.
they started a high school of the arts. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go there. And I got in, I auditioned and I got in. And I saw that it was a way out, to be honest. I never wanted to stay in Milwaukee. I saw that it was a way out. I learned that I was good at it. It made me happy. It made me really happy. And I had the support of my mother and my family, which makes a really big difference when you want to
It
be an
does.
artist.
Yes, it
Hmm.
does.
Hmm.
Especially when
Hmm.
you're going into a profession like the arts where you're probably going to be starving, living in a cardboard box, or whatever your parents think is going to happen to you because you don't have a, air quotes here, real job.
Right. No, my family didn't think that. My family thought I was going to be famous. That was the
Mm,
kind of family you want. So I went to the High School of the Arts. I got a full scholarship to college, BFA in theater, full
yeah.
scholarship to NYU, MFA in acting. And, so far I'm on track. It got really hard after I graduated. That's when like the broke, the
Yeah.
day jobs, the the struggle of being in New York, all of that got
Hmm.
uh that
Yes.
was so hard.
Tens of
Um,
thousands of aspiring artists who are know they have the
yeah,
talent and just got to find the people who can recognize it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was hard, and I had a really tough time. But all the while, I knew this is the only thing I want to do. The only thing I want to do. And however I can tell a story is how I'm going to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that's how all of my work has happened. That's where the podcast came from.
Mm,
I was like, well, how can I tell my stories? Because I'm now living in LA and I'm devoted to being mom, a really great mom, an involved mom. I'm not booking a lot of big work. I'm, commercials here, a few commercials here,
yeah.
a few voiceovers here, small parts on independent film, but nothing that is keeping me like mentally busy
Right.
thinking, nothing that is engaging me daily. And I've never been a person to sit around waiting for
Right.
people and opportunity. And I don't think that's ever the way to go as an artist anyway. So I started taking a storytelling, an audio story telling class with a man named Bob Carlson. That class really empowered me. And then I took a podcasting workshop. And then I was like, oh, I think I can do this. And that's where it came from. And the name of that podcast is actually the name of my very first show.
Okay.
That's my brand, the way I am now, the way it is now, yeah.
I've heard your podcast. I like it. The quality is excellent. It's engaging. You're interesting to talk to. The conversations are excellent. I'd say you kind of nailed it.
Yeah, I have incredible friends and family who are very generous. I just called them up and said, I got this podcast. Will you will you come and tell a story? And they're like, what do I have to tell us? And this is the concept. Something happened, and then something happened to change it. And then you have to tell me a song that really helps to tell how you live through that change. And they got into it, and the actors were really happy because they were not being asked to talk about projects. They're like, oh
Right.
my God, it's so nice that I get to talk about things other than, my friend Victor, King of Queens. Like
Hmm.
how many more interviews can he have about King of Queens? People are really happy to be able to talk about themselves. And then the non actors are happy to have the opportunity to tell their stories. Because
Sure.
nobody's asking like a regular Joe Schmo, like, how did you deal with that? How how did you get through that?
These are
Um,
questions that people aren't asked very often in daily life. Questions about themselves. Tell me your
mhm,
story.
mhm,
And all of a sudden they sit there and they think, how am I going to tell my story when I've never even thought about structuring all the things that have happened to me. How am I
mhm,
going to sound?
mhm,
What do I start with? And where
mhm,
does this go? But
mhm.
I found, I mean, from doing this podcast for 12 years, that people naturally open up a lot more than you fear they're going to
Mhm.
because they're talking about themselves. And it's such a joy to be able to bring yourself across and interact with somebody who's actually interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved every second of it.
Sure.
Every second.
Yeah.
I don't like the technical parts. I wish I didn't have to do some of that part, but I would sit and like because I did a lot of my own editing. I did have a person helping me, but I had to do the
Mhm.
initial edit, and I would sit there going, "Why am I doing that?" And then the final And then the final product, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I love it so much.
It's the
Yeah.
part that nobody tells you about, going through and
Yeah.
doing the micro editing. And,
Hmm.
for a 45-minute interview, you can be there for 4 hours
Correct.
making
Correct.
things sound good, even though
Hmm.
there were no glitches at all during the interview and nobody said a blue word and you don't have to edit this. But still, kudos to you.
Hmm.
I say I love the tech part. I
Oh,
can,
you do?
oh yeah, I can sit here and edit all day. I love this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'll send you mine.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about your audiences. What's it like? I mean, bringing this show to the stage and being upbeat, yet discussing real life, real time issues that are universal. Most of the stuff you talk about, many people in the audience are going to be able to relate to. What's it like afterwards? What do they say to you?
Oh, they say a lot of things. They say that was so relatable. I felt like you were talking right to me. Most people say I felt like you were talking to me, like you were
Hmm.
speaking directly to me, like these stories were written for me. And I say that that is what I do best. That is why I like smallish venues
Yep.
so that people I can actually engage and look at people in the eye when I can find them. And
Yep.
they're there with you. They're laughing, they're crying, they're clapping, they're singing along. I encourage people to sing. I like it when people sing with me.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes there's a lot of conversation. Afterwards, I feel like I'm Beyonce. I swear. I feel like I'm so appreciated and loved, and people are thankful to be in the space
Yeah.
because most of the time nobody knows what to expect. Like there's nothing. We write a lot. We put what the show is about on websites and social media and podcasts, all the places, articles. I've done so many interviews, but there's nothing like being in the room because how I am with each audience may be a little different because they bring things to me and
Yes.
they say things. Sometimes they are like in Chicago, those people were talking to me. It was like a full on dialogue. And then I did my first show in Milwaukee. Milwaukee was really quiet. And I thought, these are like my people, but they were
Hmm.
very quiet and reserved. And so, I have to kind of gauge what that is. But they all love it equally.
It's hard gauging audiences because you want them all to be
Hmm.
happy and you want positive feedback so you can keep going and
Hmm.
feel,
Hmm.
justified and seen. But there are those audiences that just sit there and look at you and watch. And you're up there on
Yeah.
stage and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what's going wrong? What's going wrong? What's going wrong? And then at the
Yeah.
end, they erupt into thunderous applause, and you sit there and think, oh, okay, that's just this audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's
For
strange.
sure.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
Is there one part of the show that gets more comment than any others?
Yes. I am a breast cancer survivor
Okay.
and I talk about that openly. It's all positive and joy,
Hmm.
because I made it. It gives those survivors the courage to talk about it. People come to me, so many survivors come to me, oh, I'm surviving. I survived prostate cancer. I survived
Hmm.
lung cancer. I'm also a breast cancer survivor. I've survived, there's so many cancers. Some of them I never even heard of. And they all come to me and they thank me because they got to kind of release it.
We don't have to hide
Um,
the subject anymore. It's not something I can say
yeah,
that's going to bring down the party, the evening, the week, make everybody depressed. But
no,
there are other people like me.
yeah. And it's relatable.
Yeah,
And it was a hard choice to make because I'm public and private at the same time.
sure. Yeah.
But I have an incredible mentor who also had breast cancer who said,
Hmm.
your purpose, you now have more purpose and you have to help people. You have to help survivors because you have been fortunate. And I have exceptional doctors and exceptional care, and
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have it. So my purpose now, as much as I can, and I mean emotionally, because sometimes it is difficult, is to help others,
Sure.
to release fear, to tell them about, something I learned about diet, doctors, faith, healing. I have gone down this road, and it is
It's a hard
something
road.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
should share it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I should share it.
It's
Hmm.
that does a lot of good, just bringing it out into the open and saying, hey,
Hmm.
listen,
Hmm.
we're together on this one. I know what you're going through. This is what happened to me. And,
Hmm.
whether or not you can give them tips or whether you can just give them companionship uh, is a wonderful thing.
Hmm. Or
And,
even a hug.
yeah,
Some people
even a
just want a
hug.
hug
Oh
at the
my
end of the
gosh,
show.
yes.
Yeah,
Which
some people just want a hug.
another
And
thing the
that's been
pandemic changed. Oh,
yeah, but that's been tricky too because in the beginning, folks were like, "Well, you can't hug these people."
yeah.
I'm like, I gotta hug these people. I
Oh,
gotta hug.
I
I
know.
gotta
I'm
hug
right
them.
with you. It's just, it's
Yeah, yeah,
in theater,
yeah,
everybody hugs, great show, we
yeah,
hug,
yeah,
can I
yeah,
borrow a dollar?
yeah,
We hug, and
yeah, yeah.
and since that, it's like, don't touch me. I'm wearing gloves to stay, 6 feet away. And oh, I
Mm-hmm,
hated it.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely hated it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
part of what you said, I read, you said you were trying to do with this show is to open it up to audiences that do not have a history of going to theater. And it's, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking, you can look out at an audience and it can be pretty homogenous. Most of the audiences I've seen, at least from the stage or at least from the back of the house, that's true, regardless of what's on stage. Even if the show is by an African American playwright, a lot,
Right.
it's. I'm firmly in the belief that theater should be for everyone across the spectrum, and everyone should
Mm-hmm.
have accessibility to it, and everyone should have a place where stories that they can relate to should be told. You mentioned that your show was trying in some way to reach out to audiences that don't have a history of going to theater.
Well, it's how I live my life. I live a very diverse life.
Mhm.
And because of that, I've had a very diverse audiences.
Okay.
When I look at my audience, I see what the theater should look like. And mostly I have to encourage my people to bring people. A theater is supposed to be of the people.
Yes.
And the prices of tickets,
Oh, yeah.
the
Hmm.
it's out of reach. The theater shouldn't be a vacation special
Right.
trip. The theater shouldn't only be for your birthday. I believe that the theater should be part of your lifestyle. You see things like I saw from Fame, right? You
Hmm.
see for young people, oh, I might be that might be something I can do, or there's a story that I can relate to, but they can never get into the theater
Yes. Yeah.
to hear these stories.
Who can afford 75
To
bucks a ticket?
no one, no one,
It's,
particularly after the pandemic.
oh, yeah.
Here we've lost the mark paper. They say it's
Yeah.
not forever, and we hope that is not forever. And I hope that in this time that they're examining, how their outreach,
Yeah.
examining ticket prices. You have donors, so
Yeah.
how is the donor money being used? How can we change it? Obama was excellent in involving everyone in his campaign. You know,
Hmm.
he $5. If everybody donates $5, I can become president, and everybody did it. There has to be a model, and I don't know what that model is, but there has to be a model to help open the doors to everybody.
I think for the larger theaters, such as the Mark Taper and the Goodman and all the rest of that, maintaining the infrastructure is, of course, the number one goal. But those, in many cases, it runs into the millions and millions of dollars between salaries and keeping the dimmers on and keeping the place
Mm-hmm.
maintained. It's cost after cost after cost.
Tell me
Community
for a
theater,
second.
smaller theater, okay, is a
Yeah.
lot more affordable. And I remember doing shows where we put pay what you can. All right.
Mhm.
Suggested donation, $10, but pay what you can. And some people put in $2, and that was all they could afford. And we welcomed them in, and we gave them a seat, and we gave them the best show we could. And some people were leaving 20s in there because they could
For
pay what
sure.
they could. We never did not break even. We didn't make any, a whole lot of money, but we didn't take a bath on this. A model like that caters to the ability of the people walking in the door to pay for it is something that can be modified, I think, for any level of theater.
I believe that too. I also believe that, and it's not only the theater, it's also social media and the population at large, but the actors are also part of the people. So if you are doing a play, there are a lot of actors, a lot of really good actors who are looking for opportunity, who are not, Denzel, Keith David, Angela
Mm-hmm.
Bassett, who you could probably afford to put on your stage and
Yeah.
they would do a really good job. Celebrities are expensive.
Yes.
And if we can work on believing in our projects in a different way, that perhaps the stories are worthy of being told, just worthy of being told,
Yeah.
and support, and tell it that way, I think the audiences, it might be a slow start, but I think the
Mhm.
audiences will come. They'll go, oh my gosh, they keep bringing in these actors. We've never ever heard of these people,
Right.
but every time we go, this
Yeah.
show is incredible. The
I,
actors are incredible.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, not to short shrift Denzel or Angela Bassett or
Uh,
anybody or even Keith David. Okay.
oh yeah, I know. I love all
Right.
those folks.
Oh yeah, and I love
Yeah,
seeing them, but there are other actors out there who haven't been discovered yet. Denzel was
right.
there was a point where he wasn't discovered,
Hmm.
all right, but he
Hmm.
was still out there, and there are all these actors who can do the job and should do the job. I think part of the question is putting stuff on the stages that relates to audiences. Why do I want to go see this? I mean, I'm a little sick of the chestnuts myself, but I'd rather see something new, fresh, challenging that speaks to, I'm going to say, atypical audiences.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only way the theater grows is to go to the places that we don't normally go.
Yeah. The places we're uncomfortable or unsure or ask questions.
Sure, yeah.
That's
Theater
what
should
it's supposed to
challenge.
be about.
Dionne Lea, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to talk with me today. And we finally got around to doing this. Yay! I'm so
I know. Thank
happy.
you, George.
Tell people how
Thank
they
you.
can find you, find out more about the show, and find out more about you as a practicing artist. And,
You can find out everything you need to find out about me at my website, dionnelee.com. Dionne, Dionne, Lea.com. You can also find out information on my social media, Instagram, Dionne
mhm.
underscore Lee. And my next shows will be in Chicago and Joe's Pub in New York. So,
Excellent.
yes, I'm
I
excited.
know they're all going to
Excited.
be wonderful. I wouldn't. I'm
Yeah.
going to wish you luck anyway because that's the polite thing to do. But I know you're going to kill it.
Thank you,
Okay.
George.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to Onstage Offstage. Onstage Offstage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffStage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project or interest, or know of someone in the theater world who'd make good chat, by all means, send us a note at onstageoffstagepodcast@gmail.com. Our theme music is Don't Worry, Be Frappy by the composer Max Dickinson. You can find a lot more of Max's magnificent music on SoundCloud. I'm George Sapio. Thanks once again for listening, and please be kind to those with whom we share this rock. And as always, happy theatering to all of you.